You're in Braves country. You're in Braves country.
Good afternoon, Braves country. Had everything potted down because I've been doing the clips and the commercials for 2026. Been trying to get that going, so I'm waiting to confirm that I have. There we go. All right, good to see y'all. We got breaking news all across the land, and we're going to get into it real quick. There's all kinds of stuff going on in the world of baseball. In case you've been out of the loop, as I'm sure a lot of y'all have as you go about your work day. That's what we're here for. I just got home I was speeding down to get back from work. And long story short, all kinds of news has broken. And so good to see you. I think these are set up for members only to chat. I'm not sure, but that's one of the things that we're going with. So good to see everybody in the chat. Anybody that has any questions, we will try to answer them to the best of our ability. And the big news, couple of big things that happened. First of all, Kyle Schwarber has remained a Philadelphia Philly. That is looks like it's a 5-year deal and $150 million. Not a big surprise there. I would have liked for the Braves to go all in and sign him, but there was a couple of things that were going to hurt any chance of the Braves signing him. Number one, his asking price, $30 million a year for a designated hitter. And though he had a great year this year, you got to figure by the end of that contract, you're really looking at possibly a guy who's going to be around 38 years old at the end of the contract. Is he still going to be putting up the kind of numbers he has, or is he going to decline? So, and you can't do anything else with him. You can't say, well, we could put him in left field. No. You sign him, he's your DH for the next 5 years, much like the way Ozuna was. And if he starts to fall off, and you couple the fact that he was given a qualifying offer, so that made it really difficult to say, okay, we're going to give a guy, let's say we would have matched the offer. Let's say we would have had to pay more because he wanted to stay where he's at, okay? Let's just say for giggles, 5 years, 160. So you're paying well over, $32 million a year, and you had to give up what is probably going to be the 26th pick of the draft because it's your second pick that you would give up. And remember, the Braves got the 26th pick. I believe that's where it's being estimated right now because Drake Baldwin got Rookie of the Year. So we have 2 first-round picks this year. I didn't really think with all that entails with that, once Drake Baldwin won the Rookie of the Year, it became almost impossible that it was going to happen. What do we got, Stevens? With the Braves wanting to cycle a lot of people through the DH spot and assuming Ozuna is gone, are we even going after a real DH? Is Murphy gone? Okay. So we'll unpack that in a second because I've come across a couple of things today. The other big signing, before I forget to mention it, so the first one, I'll try to put it in the chat just so for people who pop in here later, they know what the hell's going on. Kyle Schwarber, 5 years. There's a bad glare, so I might mess this up for a second. 5 years, 150 to Philly. And Edwin Diaz, the closer of the Mets, he's gone. He has signed a deal, and you might say, man, that's great. They lose one of the best closers in baseball. Well, of course he went to the damn L.A. Dodgers. So he went to the L.A. Dodgers. It's being reported right now, 3 years, $66 million. These numbers aren't in stone, but that's what's being reported, so that's what I'm throwing at you. So those are the 2 big ones. That is what had us come on. So if you notice, we have these shows scheduled every day, and now I've moved it until 11:55 p.m. I think it's just smarter to do it that way. But this is the show we would have done yesterday. There just wasn't a lot announced yesterday. So we push it to as far as we can right before midnight so that when we can come on and pop on when news breaks, we're going to do it. Because they're at the winter meetings in Orlando, and moves are starting to happen. I think you're going to get more and more movement throughout the next few days. If it happens early in the morning, just realize I'm probably at work, and you'll catch me around this time, maybe a tad earlier. Somewhere between noon and 2 is when I can expect to try to come home on Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday, we have the morning football show over on Armchair, and then we come over and do all your baseball shows 10 a.m. on here on Braves Country. So the next 3 days, essentially, anything could drop at any time. We also have a show tomorrow night, a game tomorrow night. Ronald Acuna Jr., 5:30 Eastern. Ronald Acuna Jr. and his Sharks are playing down in the Caribbean League. We'll be able to talk more about this during that game as well. So if you want to tune in, you don't really care about the game itself, realize we'll be talking winter ball for the entire game. I'll try to answer as many questions that come across there too. Diaz to the Dodgers. The biggest thing with that is, they just keep pumping money into that bullpen. And remember these moves when next offseason, the owners in the cheaper markets, when they start demanding a salary cap, and the players will say, well, if you do that, you got to have a salary floor, and then they start arguing about the numbers, and players don't want a salary cap in general. I'll say this to you on the salary cap. For people who are anti-salary cap, like, the players should be able to make however much money they want. The salary cap is going to improve the overall numbers for all the players. Not having a salary cap, all it does is it ensures that a handful of teams in Major League Baseball can spend willy-nilly And those elite players are going to make their money anyways. Who it really hurts is the guys who is a fringe guy, and he's getting a terrible offer, and he eventually has to sign with someone in the spring and goes, what the hell, I'll just try to prove it on the field, and they get caught in this vicious cycle. You have a salary floor. All these teams, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Kansas City Royals, the Rockies, all these teams that aren't spending, they would have to meet a minimum floor. And so though it would take money away for the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees and the Red Sox spending, it would force that money to go up into the litany of teams that are down around the bottom of the league. We'll say the bottom half of the league, who many of them are barely even sniffing $100 million, and you're going to end up with the Dodgers and probably the Mets after they get done spending. You're going to end up with these teams well over 300, creeping towards 400 million. And some of those numbers that get released, by the way, they don't even take into account, although they end up getting taxed off it, they don't even take into account with their raw numbers things like, okay, this year when everybody was spitting that the Dodgers didn't spend the most in baseball, they didn't take into account the $68 million that was deferred to Shohei Ohtani on his $70 million per year deal. That still matters. So anyways, when we get to this time next year and you're like, man, we just got to play and they just got to play, realize this is what causes it. It's the Phillies, it's the Dodgers, it's the Mets, the Yankees, the Red Sox. It's really only about 4 or 5 teams. The Braves will probably be deep into the top 10, meaning creeping up near top 5 numbers, but they always keep it really close to where the salary tax is right now. There's not a cap. You just get taxed if you get over. I do expect the Braves to spend some money, but one of the things that I was seeing from a couple of agents and ex-front office guys that were going over this offseason and what they expected, whether or not they expected to go out here. Here, I guess I go ahead and expand it. Whoops-a-daisy. Go ahead and expand the screen. See, Steve said I'm all for a floor and a cap. I am too. I think it's the only thing that can save the sport. And what I mean save the sport, and though it's very popular, and I'm not going to argue that it's not popular, it's the only thing that is going to keep everybody, much like you have in the NFL, where most NFL fans believe in the summer going into the season, man, I got a chance. My team has a chance. You just never know. Before they had the injury a few days ago, Colts fans, out of nowhere, the Indianapolis Colts had a real chance at the Super Bowl. Now I think it's all cooked because of the Achilles tear by Daniel Jones, but we'll see what happens there. But the point is, the Indianapolis Colt fan gets to be surprised, but they believed back in the summer because they all believe. You get to this part, which is essentially going into the summer of football. This is going into, we're almost at the spring type of area for baseball, the preseason. There are only about 12 teams that their fan base really believes that they can do it. There's 10 that have no shot, and they know they don't have any shot, not just this year, but the next several years. And then there's another, we'll say 5 to at least a solid 5. They need everything to break their way to be able to get in the postseason, and then everything to break their way to go from there. So with all that being said, I'm at the point where I used to push back on it. I'm not pushing back on it anymore. I believe that when it's all said and done, we are going to have to have a salary cap. And I'm fine with it bringing a salary floor because you should have to spend money. But anyways, back to the rest of the story. And I honestly think they're wanting to get this figured out this next go around because something a lot of people haven't really thought about. In a couple of years, all of the big television baseball contracts come to a close and all the rebidding starts. And so they'd rather take the PR pop next offseason than in 2 years down the road from that, where they're trying to negotiate for big time dollars, because baseball broke all streaming records last season, 2025, and they continue to grow. So when we look at this and we look at the guys who have just signed, now they're saying Dodgers signed Diaz to a 3-year, $69 million deal. So scratch what I said on the 66. It's Diaz, 3 years, $69 million, and the other things that are going on, I want to read you this because this is an interesting thing. I think this was Steve that was asking about this, or was it somebody else? Yeah, okay. With the Braves wanting to cycle a lot of people through the DH spot and assuming Ozuna is gone, are we even going after a real DH? Is Murphy gone? I think what we're probably looking at, Steve, unless something falls into our lap, because now when you look at, okay, a true DH would mean someone that you're going to spend big bucks on to kind of bring in. If they did go get themselves a real heavy hitter, it's probably via trade. But I do think that they are at the point now where they're not worried about spending over the tax. Their starting pitching's pretty good. And we'll go more into this on Thursday's show. This is really just a show to kind of catch you up speed on what's going on. But the starting pitching's pretty good, but I do believe that they're going to be looking for guys that they can add to the roster, the 40-man roster that they can use throughout the season. Because let's be honest, you need about 10 to 12 starters that you can rely on in a 162-game season anymore, because these guys blow their arm out because they're out there throwing as hard as they can, and it's just a part of it. There's no getting. They're not putting the toothpaste back in the bottle. They now have to. You have to have depth in starting pitching. We saw that last year with all the injuries, the fluke injury by Sale, the elbow chip by Schwarber, and the other guys that just continued to fall down the ranks. And the next thing you know, you've got Cookie Carrasco out there pitching several starts. And that's not what you want. So they're going to be looking for depth to get to the postseason, but they're going to want that elite. I still believe Spencer Strider is going to come back a hell of a lot better than he did last year. Last year was his injury year. For you football fans, think of a guy who tore his knee, and like a running back that tears his knee. He comes back that next year, he's usually looks like a step off, and then it's the year after that where he's gangbusters. I expect that to be the case for Strider. I expect Chris Sale to be Chris Sale. We may even extend Chris Sale during this offseason. That might be a part of the plans. I don't know how far they'll extend him. I think he's going to want a 2-year extension, considering how damn good he's been the last couple of years in Atlanta. And I do think he would prefer to stay in Atlanta. He could probably be coaxed into going back to Boston, but I don't think I think he's fine with staying in Atlanta, compete for a championship, and not be that far from home, and end his career as a Brave. I can see that playing out. But you've got Schwellenbach. We expect him to be back hitting all cylinders. You've got Strider and Sale. Don't forget about Ronaldo Lopez. Ronaldo Lopez is a guy that wants to start. They're going to give him an option. He's going to be penciled in the starting rotation. We'll see how it goes. I honestly would feel like, now realize this is last season of his 3-year deal that he signed. He's trying to push the market value up because he wants to get a big payday, and a starter is going to make more money than a reliever or a swing pitcher than most. So that's why he wants to be a starter. Grant Holmes did not elect for surgery. They're hoping he's going to be ready to roll. He didn't have any issues when remember they shut him down and then they fired him back up just before the end of the season in September, and then they shut him down for good, and we'll see in the spring kind of thing. I think you can realistically say that they're going to probably give him an opportunity to start, but I worry about that elbow. He did not get it cleaned up, and at his age, and he's doing the same thing that Raylo's doing, he's wanting to hit that free agent market as known as a starter, not as a reliever. But I think Grant Holmes gives us a much better chance of making a serious run if he is one of the setup guys. Remember, they had Joe Jimenez, and he had the setback. What's he going to be like? So all of these are coming into play, and I truly believe that I never really thought we were going to get Diaz because of the money, and basically because of the same reasons I laid out with the qualifying offer and everything like that. With the Schwarber, I would have loved to have Diaz, but we just signed Raisel Iglesias to be our closer. So what we're looking for, whether it's via trade or free agency, is to bolster that bullpen. Because you can't go into the spring with the idea that your best setup man are Dylan Lee and Joel Payamps, and hopefully you end up with a sorry, I got something going on the radio side that I have to check. Okay. But you're hoping that Joe Jimenez comes into play and be where he was 2 seasons ago. I mean, I think the way you have to build that bullpen is you have to say, obviously Iglesias is our starter, our closer, and then our setup guys, we've got to bring in at least one. Probably a right-hander, at least one. And then Dylan Lee and Jimenez can be looked upon as your 7th inning guys. And then if Jimenez ends up being elite like he was down the stretch in 2024, then fair enough. But you can't bank on that, because banking on the health of these guys who have been pretty brittle is just fool's gold. And then Payamps sets up as a perfect 6th inning guy, because if he ends up hitting his stride, then who the hell knows what's going to happen as far as the depth of that bullpen. But I think they have to bring in at least one, if not two, solid, you can lean on relievers. Remember, they got the left-hander that they brought in from Colorado. I was surprised by the Kinley move. I really was. I still don't understand that. But anyways, when it's all said and done, we'll have to figure out where that goes from here. Now, some of the things that like Steve was asking about, and did Peter have a question about something? Oh, news on Ozuna. Now so I haven't heard any rumors on Ozuna. I think he's getting lowballed by everybody, and he may end up coming back to Atlanta, but it's going to be at a lot cheaper rate than what we were paying. So we were paying him $16 million a year for 4 years the last go around. Now, after a bad year and the injury, and I mean, he was just a shell of his former self down the stretch. He may sign a cheap 1-year prove-it deal, but most likely what these guys really want is a 2 to 3 year deal that they can opt out of. But I think if Atlanta's playing their cards right, there needs to be mutual options. I think they need to have an ability to have an out at the end of this year, because look, if you do bring him back, you have to be realizing the idea that if you bring Ozuna back, you may get an exact replica of what you got last year. Father Time's undefeated, and that injury to his hip, I think, had a lot to do with it, and a full recovery in the offseason. may work wonders. But it could just be something that he's starting to break down, that his body's starting to break down. And the year before, last 2 or 3 years before that, he was tearing the cover off the ball. But I'm just saying, buyer beware. You know, the whole argument where everybody wants to put Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame, goes, oh, you still got to be able to hit the ball. This is the type of crap that the PEDs made him undefeated against, because the PEDs let his body heal at that age. And so though he may have still ended up with enough numbers to get in the Hall of Fame eventually, you just never know how it would have played out. And the fact that the guy cheated is why the purists, like I, are against it. Not until you get all the other guys in, then we can talk. But you got to put Shoeless Joe and Pete Rose in before, and you got to put Dale Murphy in. That was horse crap. What the hell was that? I'm glad to see Jeff Kent get in. That was overdue. If you were with us on the Once Upon a Pastime series on Thursday, I mentioned that my vote would have been Murphy, Kent, and Mattingly in that order. And you could talk me out of Mattingly, but just like Murphy, he was the icon of the 80s for the American League, and one of the icons. And Dale Murphy was that for the National League. And so many people that I met in Atlanta when we talked about Murphy, we went to the All-Star game and whatnot, the majority of them became Braves fans or even baseball fans because of Dale Murphy in the 80s, because they could watch him everywhere on TBS. So I won't dive back into that, but this is the type of stuff that if we go out and we sign a Marcell Ozuna, just beware. He could get popped for PEDs. It could be a thing, and there's nothing he's ever done that tells you he would. But hell, we didn't think that Jurickson Profar was going to get popped. A guy gets to that age, and he comes in on a 1-year prove-it deal. He's going to do whatever he can to try to get that money, especially a guy who knows he's not going to the Hall of Fame. So I'm just, what I would prefer the Braves to do is to go out and get a bat that they can put. The reason why I don't think they're going for Ozuna is one reason only. When you hear Anthopoulos say that he wants to cycle the DH this year, that he does not want to do what the others, in other words, not have a permanent DH like Ozuna, then that tells me we're not signing Ozuna, and we might as well say goodbye. Only way Ozuna gets re-signed is if we just run out of options, and he's going to sign like just an extremely cheap prove-it deal. 1-year deal, 5 years. I'm sorry, 1 year, $5 million. Maybe 6 or 7, but that's it. And I just don't think that's where he wants to be. And I think the Braves want to have the ability to put different guys at the DH role, because they haven't been able to do this the last several years. Put different guys in the DH role, and the idea is to get different guys days of rest. And so that brings me to, see, I hit that one. All right. There's a rumor out there spreading around that Willie Castro, who is the free agent market, and he is essentially a clone of Dubon, who we just got in the trade for the Astros. You can kind of play him all over. He's got a little better bat, not as great of a glove, typically over his career. Now, he had a bad back half of last year when he was traded from Minnesota to the Chicago Cubs. He was terrible with the Cubs. So you may be able to get a cheap deal. But if you sign a Willie Castro and you sign a Dubon, what you have essentially said is that we're going to put two, and they have said that the Braves, the Rockies, and the Pirates, I think those were the only 3 teams. There might have been a 4th. Yeah, no, it's Braves, Pirates, and Rockies are all interested. Now, if the money's the same, Willie Castro wants to be a Brave. Let's be honest. He doesn't want to go play for a team that's going to freaking look up at everybody else in the standings the entire season. He wants a team that going into spring is going to be one of the top guys in all of. He wants to be a part of a team that's going to be one of the top contenders in all of baseball. I'm not excited about a Willie Castro signing, to be honest with you. I'd have been excited about it if we would have gotten someone to play the DH type of role and then cycle him through, and you add Willie Castro. Then I'm like, all right, now we really got some depth. But if that's it, if they're just gonna sign Willie Castro, unless now here's the one caveat, and a lot of Braves fans, including I, am not loving what I'm hearing. If they sign Willie Castro, the idea is Ozzie Albies could be out the door. That they could be moving Ozzie Albies, have Willie Castro and Dubon, some version of your second base infield type thing. You'd free up money, and you could make a serious offer at Ha-Seong Kim. So trying to paint that picture for you, what you would have is you'd have Ha-Seong Kim at short. Second base, I would say would be day in, day out would be Castro. But Dubon could come in and relieve any of these guys. The only position he can't play or hasn't played, hell, he might be able to play, is catcher. Because he's played third, he's played first, he's played second and short. He's played all over the outfield. And he just won the Gold Glove. Second time in 3 seasons, he's won the Gold Glove in the American League for the utility role. It just doesn't get you super excited as a Braves fan because you want to see some offense injected into that team. And so when we talk about this, and I'm going to wrap this up here pretty shortly because we may have to do another one of these later today. And I do kind of expect there's probably going to be one tomorrow. And we'll, on the Thursday show, the Thursday morning show, we'll do a wrap up that kind of gets you caught up with everything that you may or may not have missed. Now, tomorrow night is the Sharks, the Venezuelan Sharks. That's what I'm calling them because their actual name is like that damn long. But what it means is they play in the Venezuelan Baseball League, and they are the Sharks. Even their logo is a shark. And Ronald Acuna Jr. and all that stuff, and look forward to that. But you look at the guys that are still out there, and don't get me wrong, if we end up with Willie Castro, I won't be devastated because I still think there's other moves coming. But let's say you end up trading, let's say that comes to fruition. Let's say you bring in Willie Castro. And you either go do a Dubon Castro type of platoon along with the others, or you trade Ozzie Albies and you sign Ha-Seong Kim. What are they getting back in that trade? It could be a starting pitcher. It could be, and someone was asking about Sean Murphy. I think we're stuck with him. I don't think anybody wants him at the price that we're paying him and the offense that he is not putting out. So your DH very well could just be Drake Baldwin on most days, Sean Murphy behind the plate. You add a third catcher to the roster, a veteran, someone who can come off the bench, doesn't need to play every day to stay sharp. Unfortunately, he's under contract, but like a Travis d'Arnaud type. Unless they somehow find a way to make a trade with that. But that's going to be a problem, too, because they overpaid Travis d'Arnaud on the market last year. And so to make a trade for Travis d'Arnaud more likely would be like in the middle of the season. I don't unless they get the Angels to eat some of that money because nobody wants to pay. But you would be freeing up that money from an Ozzie Albies trade. And so if that were to happen, you could see a scenario where you're rotating that DH with Drake Baldwin If it's a tough lefty, then you go ahead and you put a Darnold in there. But typical days, Drake Baldwin's going to be your DH, and Murphy's going to be your catcher because he's just better defensively. There's just no way around it. The question you're going to have is what kind of offense can you expect out of Murphy? And the problem with Murphy, and I'm sure everybody remembers this, the problem with Murphy is where the hell do you put him in the lineup? Because now when he's scorching hot, you can move up to sixth or fifth, right? But typically, Sean Murphy should be at the bottom of the order, but you can't put him at the very bottom because then he's going to clog up the base paths when the order flips over to Acuna and then probably Jurickson Profar. So you don't want this tortoise just clogging up the base paths. So you almost have to feel like you could pitch him. You either hit him seventh or eighth, but it's going to be a dead zone in the lineup, and that's the conundrum. But looking at some of the guys that are out there that are available, you're looking at the problem with, as far as the bats are concerned, you either are paying big money like Schwarber and Cody Bellinger, or you're getting an also-ran. So with that being said, the guys that are still out there that are going to actually make you jump up and down if you get them, free agent. I'm not talking trades are a totally different situation. I'm talking about free agent. The deal is guys like obviously Schwarber are gone. Josh Naylor are gone. Who else has been signed recently as far as the bats? Cedric Mullins, nobody cares about that, and Miguel Rojas the same. Those aren't guys. Jake Fraley, I mean, most of these guys that have been actually moved haven't really done anything. But the ones that are available, and I don't know why this thing is not firing up right, but the available here it is. Man, that thing got log jammed. Alex Bregman, forget about it. He's not going to be a Brave. Pete Alonso, forget about it. He's not going to be a Brave. Cody Bellinger, the same. They're asking a lot of money, and I think they're more likely to penny pinch. Here's a wild scenario if you could move enough money around, and let's say you do trade an Ozzy Albies. I mean, JT Real Muto is a free agent. I still think he probably ends up back in Philadelphia, but he is still elite defensive, and he swings an okay bat. It's better than Sean Murphy's bat. So that is a little thinking outside the box. Could you move Murphy? And if you could, then you have JT behind the plate and you have Drake Baldwin as the designated hitter. I would be jumping up and down for that. Gary says, I don't mind switching Baldwin and DH and the DH. I do because Murphy sucks. I'm fine with Murphy as a starting catcher, but as a designated hitter, he sucks. He's a dead zone. If Murphy's in my lineup, it's because he's behind the plate. I am sick and tired of watching him come to the plate, and he didn't do it much last year, but even the year before, he would go back and forth on the DH role. He's just trash. There's nothing you can do with him. He has a terrible batting average. His OPS is in the gutter. He gets hot like 2 weeks a season, and you never know when those weeks are coming. And then other than that, he's an automatic out, or he's an automatic double play. He can't run worth a damn, and he's only getting older. But defensively, if you want to put him behind the plate, I don't have a problem with that, because he gives you something that Drake Baldwin doesn't give you. Drake Baldwin sucks behind the plate. Let's be honest. And I love watching Drake Baldwin play, and I root for him. And when he throws a guy out, you're like, hell yeah, where's that man? But then the next 5 guys are just gonna torch him. He had one of the worst stolen base attempt averages against, not just in the league last year. It was historic how bad it was. So Drake Baldwin's probably your designated hitter is the easy answer. The question is, what do you do about the catching position? You can't bring in JT Realmuto if you're not moving Sean Murphy, because Sean Murphy and JT Realmuto don't want to be every other day catchers. So you would have to, let's say you brought in a JT, you have to trade Murphy, but who wants him? That's the problem. It's got to be someone who's really desperate for a catcher and is not scared to pay. And you're probably not going to get a whole hell of a lot back of it, or you're going to eat quite a bit of the money because of what you're getting back in the trade. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Murphy was injured. Murphy has sucked since the back end of 2023. So I'm not going to buy all these damn excuses. Murphy's always injured. He's always coming off the damn IL. He's always, oh, well, now I feel great now. Then one freaking foul ball hits him off the foot. He goes out for 2 months. And then the next 4 months after that, every schmo is going, well, he's got to just get better. He's got to just not feeling well. Availability is the number one ability in professional sports. He's always hurt. So I'm not buying into any of that crap either. The other thing you could do, you think about this big picture, and it's not that I think it's because he's terrible at the plate. It's that he terrible in the field. It's because he gets hurt all the damn time, and most of it is at the plate. But maybe, just maybe, if he DH'd a little more and played the field a little less, you would end up with a full 162 out of him is Austin Riley. So any of these scenarios that I'm laying out, you got to bring in another catcher. That's what I would prefer to do. I would prefer to have 3 catchers on the roster. The third one, he's not going to be a big-time hitter, but he's going to be good enough to where you don't mind putting him at the DH spot from time to time. But if not, and this is really just dreaming a dream, right? By the way, I don't think I mentioned it, but the Phillies also extended their manager Rob Thompson through the 2027 season. That really wasn't a shocker. His contract was ending in 26, and you don't really want your skipper going in to the next year in a lame duck year. Guys that are interesting out there on the free agent market that are still, the tires are being kicked. I'm wondering what a Framber Valdez could end up bringing, who he ends up with. I thought I saw that Nick Martinez was signing, but they're still listing him as a free agent, so maybe that didn't end up going through. I thought I saw that Martinez was in talks and almost agreement to be retained at Cincinnati, but they're showing him as being a free agent. So I don't know if something fell through on that. Guys that are probably more likely to be signed by the Braves. I know this isn't the sexy picks that you want to hear, but first of all, let's be honest about something. This free agent pool this year is extremely shallow. It's extremely shallow. You have a handful of elite players, and the rest, meh. It hasn't been the last few years. We've had much deeper free agent pools. This one isn't it. But guys that you can think that the Braves are probably kicking the tires on are the Chris Bassetts of the world. Is he now eligible because Dylan Cease got brought into Toronto? Lucas Giolito, who had a phenomenal year. I just think he's going to want a big windfall. He's 31 years old. He's going to want a 4 or 5 year deal, and I just don't think the Braves are going to give it to him because of his age and his injury history. Remember, he's already had one Tommy John. Framber Valdez is out there. The biggest thing about Framber Valdez, he goes to the post. He's not going to be one of these guys that well, he was injured. That's why we sucked. he got hurt playing sports. No, he's going to be out there. Framber Valdez, and I hope I'm not jinxing the guy, but Framber Valdez goes to the post. And that's the Bulldog mentality you want. And Sean Murphy's injury, by the way, that was the beginning of the damn season. And then when he continued to suck, then all of a sudden they started trying to say, well, I don't know if he's ever actually healed from that. Then he should have healed before you brought him back, because he's an automatic out is not a reason to bring a guy back. Other guys that are still out there free agent market, I mean, I don't know why Max Scherzer hasn't announced a retirement yet, but I'm assuming it's coming. Justin Verlander, the same thing. He says he wants to come back this year. I'm assuming he's going to stay in California, but no news is broken on that. But there are guys out there that are interesting, but they're long in the tooth. Guys like Alex Cobb, guys like John Gray. You know, another guy that would be an interesting add too if you traded an Ozzie Albies and you put into the mix as far as the hitters are concerned. Luis Arias is a free agent. And so the big name, the only big names that are still out there on the free agent market from hitters, Bregman, Alonso, and Bellinger. Real Muto, days gone by, he's going to be 35 years old on opening day. But he's still a solid catcher. Don't get me wrong. Guys with names, but man, they are on the backside of 30. We're talking about Starlin Marte. Rhys Hoskins, because he's 33, but because of the injuries, he is starting to play like he's 36, 37. Michael Conforto has been a bust every time he goes anywhere. I don't want anything to do with him. And then, of course, there is the Kyle Tucker. I don't think I mentioned him. But he is a qualifying offer, and I don't think there's any shot in hell that they end up bringing him in. Marcelo Ozuna. They are still saying market value is $13 million. I don't buy it. I don't buy that anybody's giving him that. Another interesting ad would be, obviously, Ha-Seong Kim. I still think he's our number one guy. But if that falls through, could you end up seeing a scenario where they grab Gleyber Torres and get creative with shortstop? Bo Bichette, they're saying $23 million. I think he wants to break the bank. I don't know if 23 for Bo Bichette. You see these other guys getting 30. I'm not buying it. Other than that, there's not a whole hell of a lot out there. What if the Braves make a big splash in offense, honest engine, it's going to be in a trade. And they are saying that the trades are that the Braves are involved in a lot of these talks, but we'll never know until it actually comes through. I think that's just about it. But the Willie Castro thing, keep an eye on that. If we sign Willie Castro, that could be one of two things. Either we're done and we have figured out the shortstop. We're just going to shuffle a couple of very low expectation bats over there with solid defense and good base running. Or if they're signing Willie Castro, they may be going all in to go grab Ha-Seong Kim, and it's adios Ozzie Albies. I just don't see them. I have a hard time seeing them trading Ozzie Albies. I just do. He had a down year, and he still ended up living up to what he was actually paid. He's going to be very affordable this year and next. I don't see the gain of trading Ozzie Albies at the bottom of, because if you're going to trade Ozzie Albies, wait for him to bounce back this year and then worry about that. You're more likely to get the news that he gets extended because maybe you catch him going, hey man, you had a bad year. This is what guys like you are making off of those free agent deals. What if we give you a little bit better juice because of what you did in the past and we lock you up long term? I still think Ozzie Albies is a great fit at second base. I know a lot of the writers out there bitch and moan about him, but they have unrealistic expectations of what you can get out of second base. You look at the other teams, not just in the postseason, but around the league. Ozzie Albies, he's not too shabby. There's breaking it. Nah, it's the same thing. MLB Network will give you breaking news flashing for the next 6 hours about Kyle Schwarber and Edwin Diaz. If you're just joining us, we're wrapping it up, but you can always rewind. Edwin Diaz goes to the Dodgers, 3 years, $69 million. Kyle Schwarber is staying in Philadelphia, 5 years, $130 million. And the Braves are being rumored to be very interested in Willie Castro, who is another utility type that could possibly go out there and give the Braves more depth. But if they do that, they're either done with shortstop or they're bringing in a Hassan Kim, and they are moving Ozzie Albies like it's being rumored. I got to see it to believe it. Y'all have a great one. Anything breaks rest of the day at a reasonable hour, we'll be here. If not, I'll see you tomorrow around lunchtime as I race home from work. But those are the two big fish, and all this stuff has a direct effect on what the Braves still have offered, because it's not just the free agent that is gone, it's also teams pivot, players pivot, agents pivot, and what did the Braves have on their radar for a trade possibility? Did that open something up because now Diaz and the Dodgers are off the market, or is it going to make it a little more tougher because now the Mets are looking? The Mets are in trouble. I'm telling you right now, the Mets are in trouble. They've got so many question marks, and they haven't answered anything. If you want to be entertained, we'll try to get some of the clips, but I guarantee you New York radio is going to go ballistic over the next 24 hours. I'll try to get as many clips as I can. See you tomorrow, regardless, 5:30 for the baseball broadcast, Acuna, down in the Venezuelan League. And anything else breaks in between now and then, we will jump on here. Y'all have a great one. And good to see you, as was. I want to make sure I say hi to everybody. As was Gary, Steve-O, Richard Talley, B.A. Baracus. I know I saw PETA. And if you're wondering if you're just at Tree Nug, if you're wondering if you're just joining, this was a pop-up. This was not planned. This was because of the news of the free agent signings. Is Iron Lung in here? Because someone's saying one iron. Is that possibly Steve-O? I don't know that. I hate the fact that YouTube did this to y'all's names. I'm going to investigate this to see if I can get that, if there's anything we can do. See you tomorrow, 5:30, or when news breaks in the next 24 hours. Have a good one, Brady.
Goodbye, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. We're back tomorrow with another show. Well, unless we're fired, we'll talk to you then. Goodbye, sweetheart. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Guys and gals, it's time to go. We'll see you on the next show.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's closing time, y'all. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Have a great one. On your way out, please like and subscribe. And don't forget to tip your favorite bartender. We'll see you. I'm Mac McGee, signing off for Braves Country Radio.